What is your definition of leadership, and how does that definition translate to what you see as the role of the mayor of Cheyenne?
Leadership is a person that has the ability to encourage people to grow, to be much more than what they really are, to help them want to go further, but also has the ability of saying, this is what I see, what do you see? And then take all of these ideas and come up with a solution, one idea at a time. But is also willing to take and step out and listen to other people's ideas, knowing that you're not necessarily always the smartest person in the room, and that other people have the same idea or the same ability to come up with ideas that you do. And being able to institute that into a solution, but being open-minded enough to listen to everybody in the room, not just yourself. How that translates into being a good mayor is, the problem is ego. Is your ego bigger than your servants tell? And I find that a lot of cases, that's the problem, is their ego is too big. They don't want to listen to what's on the outside. They don't want to bring people together and hear what these different classes of situations bring to the table. And the mayor needs to be able to do that. And that's how my leadership style works, is being able to listen to everybody and make it all work.
As a follow-up, how important do you feel it is for the mayor to be an ambassador for our community, setting a good example both in person and online?
I think it's as important as a community person, as a person in the community, if you will. How you present yourself and how you present your community is how people are going to see you. It's like when you drive into Cheyenne and you see something that is unsightful. That's your first impression. Well, as the mayor, you're people's first impression before they ever get here. So it's very, very important that you are astute, you're well-spoken, you speak well of your community, but you speak honestly as well. So very, very important as the ambassador.
Through the years, the relationship between the city council and the mayor's office has eroded, impeding the work that needs to get done for the citizens of Cheyenne. How would you repair this relationship?
Communication is a huge issue for the mayoral, for the mayor, excuse me, and for city council. And again, it comes back to leadership, the ability to get everybody into a room and listen and put those ideas together. I'm a relationships person, and because what I do, I deal with several different cities and several different governments in small areas, Durango, whatever else have you. But we communicate, we're able to talk, and we're able to come up with a solution for everybody's problem. And in order for the city council and the mayor to get along, they have to be able to do the same thing. And if they agree or if they disagree, they need to be able to, at the end of the day, come up with a solution that works for the people. So communication is the solution to the problem, and constant communication and honesty and integrity, all of those go together.
If you are elected mayor, what would you want your relationship with city staff to be, and how would you make sure that happens?
Again, city staff have to know that they can trust you, that what you say is your bond, that it's golden. That happens through constant communication, being able to speak with them on a regular basis. I'm not a desk jockey. I like to go out and I like to visit with people. I want to know who you are. I want to know, how's your family? I want to know, is today a good day? Is today a bad day? What can we do to help? They need to be able to have that in their leadership. And so being the mayor, I am that person that gives them the ability to go to work and say, well, I feel comfortable, I have a job today. And that follows through with integrity and, again, communications.
As a follow-up, if you found out that morale was down among city employees, what would you do in response?
Talk to them. What's it going to take? And I've spoke with a lot of them over since February. And morale is down. And a lot of it is just because they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe. They don't know, is tomorrow going to be the end of their job? Is today going to be the end of their job? they don't feel that anybody really cares about them. It's just a job, and you can come and you can go, and nobody should feel that way. I don't feel that way ever in any of my positions, because it's been important to the companies that I've worked for to make me feel like an integral part. So to boost morale, do what it takes, talk to them. And I'm also a person that believes a family that eats together, speaks together, lives together, works well together. So I'm in any place I've ever worked, I've gone out and bought something, let's sit down and eat and just talk. Not about work, let's just talk. Communication.
What programs or policies would you put in place to provide support for the people in Cheyenne who are homeless or are low or middle income to ensure that they can have their basic needs met and can withstand future crises like we've experienced recently?
See, I think the proper role of government is three pillars. It's health and safety, it's sanitation, and it's infrastructure. And I think those are the things that we need to keep in place. We do some help with the Coppinger shelter. We do some help with the senior center. And I think we need to try to continue those types of things and those types of programs. But we need to bring jobs to Cheyenne to employ those people that are homeless. But I don't know that I have any specific plans to put something together specifically for just the homeless, other than what's already in place, and encourage the churches to do what they do best, take care of the community. I believe that's kind of their role.
In Cheyenne, affordable housing and living wage jobs are a chicken and egg scenario. People can't afford to live in Cheyenne as housing prices rise, but companies don't move to Cheyenne because there aren't enough available skilled workers. How would you tackle this problem?
So I've thought a lot about that, and it's kind of a three-pillar thing again. We have the community college out here, and I've spoke with them. Excuse me, glasses. And they're willing to train people to do anything we want them to be trained in. So we can bring any manufacturer here. When we think of infrastructure, we always think of the roads, we think of water, we think of electricity, we think of sewage. But what about things like fiber and communications? What are we doing to encourage those to other places, to the industrial parks, so that if companies come here, they have the high-speed internet that they need to have? The same with our residential. Why aren't we encouraging more of this, working with our communications partners to put in fiber in areas that when we start building these houses, that we can do telecommuting more often? I mean, people from the coast, on either coast, want to come to Cheyenne. They want to come to the inner Midwest. But their concern is they don't have the things that they need. The apartments right there, excuse me, have CenturyLink fiber, Luna fiber now. And because of that, they're able to have doctors and radiologists move into them and be able to sit there and read all day long in the comfort of their own home. Shows that telecommuting is a very, very important part. Now, as far as businesses and residential, we need to rework the UDC code. We need to make it so that it is convenient, so that it's understandable, so that it's steadfast, so that it's safe, so that it makes sense today and it makes sense in 20 years. So that when businesses come to Cheyenne, they don't have the excuse of, well, if I had to do this all over again, I would never come back here, because it's ever changing. Today's rule is not tomorrow's rule. For instance, somebody took a parking plan into the planning office, and when they took them in there, they said, well, we think these parking spaces would work better over here. So they went back to their engineers, they paid their engineers to have this changed, and they brought it back. And that time they said, well, no, I think the parking spaces would work better over here. How do you run a city like that? There should be a pamphlet. When you come in, this is what we want. If you bring this to us in a specific period of time, we'll tell you, go ahead, let's start building. We also need to make sure that people can get the money out of their property, out of their land value. Instead of building on 60, build on 80. Instead of having to have $112,000 worth of trees and grass and water that wasn't there before, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more sense to it. But the UDC code really needs to be worked. It's stifling everything that goes on in Cheyenne, period. That's the biggest problem that Cheyenne has. Our kids, our greatest assets, are leaving because we don't have things for them to do here. It's not because we don't have a labor force. It's because we don't have labor. We don't have the jobs that fit them. We have incredibly intelligent kids, incredibly intelligent. Our schools are second to none, from Triumph High to Central High School. Any one of those schools have very capable kids. The University of Wyoming, LCCC, has one of the finest nursing schools in the country, one of the finest radiology programs in the country. They teach trades, they teach everything you want to have. There's absolutely no reason we don't have businesses here, but we convince them not to come here. We almost buy them off by building a UDC code that just stifles business. Yes, ma'am.
What is your position on utilizing tax increment financing for special districts? And which organization would you support to manage the distribution of the funds generated?
See, I'm not a real big tax person. I don't think when a person builds a business, they say, oh, well, we plan on the government paying for our business. I would not encourage the DDA. It would have to be somebody, the city, somebody that I trusted near and dear, if we were going to use the TIF funds for that purpose. But it would. I'm not real big on subsidies. It would have to be. My idea of not giving subsidies is completely different. I don't like to see subsidies at all. If you bring a business to Cheyenne, we'll give you tax incentives and we'll encourage you that way, but we're not going to provide you your tax dollars to build a business.
For many years, the mayor and the city council have been reluctant to revisit the issue of a non-discrimination ordinance to protect LGBTQ+ people. As mayor, would you support the reintroduction of the issue of a non-discrimination ordinance? Why or why not?
I would not. I don't believe in discrimination in any way, shape, or form. And I believe when you take an ordinance like that, you're saying, well, I'm going to have you sign a piece of paper to say you're nice. And you can have a bully sign a piece of paper to say they're nice, but they're still a bully. But I also believe the ordinance says that it leans towards, it's no longer equal. There's no equality in there. You as a business owner have the same rights as you in the community. You have the right to make those decisions. The federal law has already got it covered, and the state law already has it covered. But I would not support an ordinance in any way, shape, or form. I'm not going to take rights from one to give special rights to another, because I believe in equality, and I believe in freedom, and I believe in personal rights.
Given the frustrations voiced by developers and property owners on the process of getting city approvals for projects or permits, what would you personally do to improve the process?
Customer service is a pet peeve of mine. And I think that when you come in as John Q. customer, you should be treated hands down the best you can possibly be treated. That's first. You have to talk to people. You have to communicate to people. You have to be the same. I mean, what I tell you, I tell you, I tell you, I tell you. It's always the same sentence to each person. And the customer is always right until they're wrong, but you don't have to be mean or nasty about it. And I hear that all the time. We go in there, we're treated like dirt. We're not treated well. That has to go away. Customer service is not, you're not born with it. It's trained, it's taught. And leadership is what teaches that. And so as mayor, it would be my responsibility to teach those people in those offices, this is how you have to talk to people. This is how you treat this situation. And then teach those leaders to teach their people, so that it becomes one steadfast, one flow for everybody.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. You mentioned the UDC.
Yes, sir.
Needs to be looked at.
Yes, sir.
UDC is just a document. How it's administered from the city. Do you see any changes there? I mean, one department, two departments, you know, do you see a need to do anything in that regard to try to make the process better?
I do. I think that this is what we think it means. There's always a shade of gray. You have to look at it in each individual case. The UDC code was supposed to be a guide, not a concrete pillar. And unfortunately, it's gone away from that. And so because of that, it's created its issues. But we can look at the UDC code and go through it and dissect the pieces out of it. The planning division should do the planning, the permitting division should do the permitting, and the inspectors, but they all need to work together so that they're all always on the same page all the time.
Wyoming ranks near the bottom of the country when it comes to the gender pay gap. What do you think can be done on the municipal level to improve gender equality in Cheyenne?
Well, as mayor, I'd make sure, because I don't believe in isms, and in my house we don't believe in isms. My daughter is a lead mechanic for Travel Americas in Virginia, and I encouraged her to do that because that was her passion, and it had nothing to do with her gender. And I told her she should expect to be paid the same as anybody else. I would want that in my administration. I would want the men to know they were as well paid as the women to know as they were well paid. Everybody should be the same. If you have the qualifications to do the job, the paycheck is set by qualifications, not by gender. So no, there's no excuse. We would fix that.
The city budget has taken some hits as a result of the energy crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. What are your city budget priorities, both during the ongoing pandemic and afterward? And what would be your priorities in regards to city spending?
See, I think because I've worked with major corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, they all have the same, from Great Lakes to where I'm at, the same philosophy. Well, I need a bigger budget next year. So in the third quarter, we're going to spend all the extra money we have to spend so that we can ask for 3% more, 4% more, 5% more. So my goal is when I first actually get into office is to go through that budget and find out who's doing that. What are we spending money on? What are we throwing money down the drain? Employees, they're safe. I have no desire to get rid of employees. But let's find out where we're throwing money away. And the best way to find that out is ask the employees that are worried about their jobs, where do you see the money going? What's being spent? Then dissect the budget right now. Because right now, the budget that I pulled off a line, it gives you basics, but it doesn't show you what they're spending and when they're spending it. It just says how much they have to spend throughout the year. We actually need to see where they're spending it, what they're spending it on, and what are they throwing money down the drain. We're supposed to be a paperless society. How many millions of dollars are we spending, or how many hundreds of thousands of dollars are we spending on paper? What are we spending on ice? Are we buying ice? I know that one spot spent $10,000, not here in the city, $10,000 a year on ice for their employees because they were buying it in bags. And for $3,000, we got an ice machine, and now for $100 a year in water, they have the same $10,000 in ice for $50 a year. So those are the things that we need to look at. We need to find out where is the money being spent, where is it being thrown away, and what's not being wisely used, and what's disappearing in the third quarter. And then reduce those budgets back. And I think we'll find that we can cure our budget issues from that point. And I also want to get away from counting on Cheyenne Frontier Days. And don't take me wrong. I love Cheyenne Frontier Days with a passion. I want Cheyenne to look for other ways to bring money in. The DDA putt-putt golf thing was a hit. I mean, everybody and their cousin went to it. The Summer on the Streets was a hit. Everybody came up to it. The cruise, I made a phone call to a radio station in Denver and got another 150 cars to come up here. Just real simple little things to draw people to come to Cheyenne. That's the tax dollars. It's great to have the industry to to employ the people, but it's the small businesses that are being spent on, where the money is going to, that's going into the city coffers that we're spending on keeping the city alive. So the budget has to be looked at from a third quarter push and then find other ways to build that budget back up.
At some point, we are going to come up for a renewal in another year or so. What are your priorities for the next round of the 6 penny sales tax project?
It's up to the people. What do they see? What do they want their money spent on? I use the rec center as a big thing. I'm a no vote on the rec center, please understand that. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just I don't want my tax dollars being spent on that rec center. But it's never ever really gotten a fair shake. It's always been packed in with a lot of substandard things that people in Cheyenne aren't going to vote for. It's just the way it is. So I think they need to do just like the Christensen overpass, which was probably the wisest vote ever put together in the city of Cheyenne. They marketed it extremely well. They showed people how it was going to benefit them in that short period of time. And they got it on the ballot as a separate line item. That's what has to happen to the rec center. It needs to be a separate line item so that the people can vote on it and say, this is what we want. But that 6 penny is about what the people want. It's not about what the city wants or what I want. That's the people's tax dollars. Do you guys want something on there? This is what we have. Vote on what you want. And either A, they extend it, or B, they don't. It's really simple.
Rick, what issues have we not addressed so far that you want to make sure that you talk about today?
We've covered a lot of areas. I am a unifying person. This morning I was at a school over on the south side because they have traffic issues and they're on a main street and nobody seems to care. And their words, it's because we're on the south side. That's not something that should ever come out of anybody's mouth. And why isn't it being taken care of? Now, I lived on the south side and I understand where they're coming from that. I see Cheyenne as 5 sections. We have downtown, we have the east side, we have the north side, we have the south side, and we have the west side. We need to unify that. We need to get away from, you asked about the ambassador. Well, the ambassador has to cover all 4 areas of town. And if you came to me and said, would I live on the south side? Absolutely, I'd live on the south side. That's why they're building Sweetgrass over there, because it's a phenomenal area. Would you play on the west side? Well, absolutely I'd play on the west side, because look at what West Edge has done for this side of town. They're actually starting to see things for themselves, and now the city needs to encourage that even better. We need a mayor that's capable of bringing all of that together, seeing the churches and the different religions as just that. I mean, under the First Amendment, they're guaranteed that ability to do that. And as the mayor, that's my responsibility to make sure that they can practice that. Second Amendment, I am so steadfast in the Second Amendment as written, not as modified or as adjusted as can be, as written. But that's what's going to take to draw all of this together. And you need a mayor for a change that will actually unify that. We'll see your ideas and your ideas and your ideas as important as my ideas. North, south, east, west, and downtown. All just as important.